Hello everyone, Jo and Jo here from Hoarding Disorders UK, and we wanted to talk with you today a little bit about how you can help somebody with hoarding behaviours. You don't always need to bring us professionals in, but there are things that you can do, and there's things that can be not so good to do as well. So we just thought we'd run through a few of those with you. Fire away, Jo.
Right. Yeah. So for any of you, I know it's a bit confusing. There's two Joes, but we're not the two Ronnies. I have to say it like that, and we're not walking wise. How do we help someone with hoarding behaviours? Well, help being, that's the key word. You need to ask the person, what does help look like?
Yeah.
I think it's really important that you don't rush in wanting to with your own agenda, because I think that can be, all too easy. We automatically go into solution mode when actually you really need to hold back. And again, it's about looking at the person and not the stuff. The person is first.
That can really, people then being told what to do as opposed to having some sort of say in what happens, which is a huge difference, isn't it, for people?
Yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm. And the main thing is establishing trust and rapport.
Yeah.
Without that, you're not going to help. You're not going to help, because they're always going to be questioning what you're doing. And as you said, it's about empowering someone.
Yeah. And often, like if trying to go into the home to speak to them about it can be the worst thing to do. Having a conversation in a neutral environment, and kind of gaining that trust in that you are going to work with them in whichever way works for them is a huge part of it. Because without that, there's just never going to be any progress.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of goes hand in hand with the not judging.
Absolutely.
Because it's so easy to walk into someone's home, and when you don't have a problem with it, and just see it as a lifestyle choice, and judge that actually this is you keep having those ideas in your head about what it is and why it is, are very, very destructive, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely. And people will pick up on how you're feeling. So again, don't force yourself into someone's home. It's around the conversations that you have, and as Jo C mentioned, or Dirty Jo mentioned, it's about kindness, conversations, and curiosity. Those go a long way, and having some respect. Having conversations around, what does this mean to you? A yogurt pot might be a yogurt pot to you, but a yogurt pot to someone else might represent a vast of opportunities. Might have its own meaning. So it's very important that you don't make your own decisions over what's rubbish and what's not.
And that's hugely about listening. And I remember being taught in your training about you've got to be a detective. You've got to listen for why and what's going on, and respond to that, not what you think it is all about, because like you say, a yogurt pot to me is absolutely meaningless, but to them it could have all these different uses, and so then picking up on those to then try and work with them to in a way that makes sense to them. So listening is absolutely huge, isn't it? And I think a lot of the time we don't do that. We go in and we're already thinking of the next thing we're going to say before they've even finished talking.
That's right. And we're already deciding, let's start with the newspapers in our own mind. We're coming up with solutions when we're that's not helpful.
No.
We always start from listening. And I think sometimes people say, well, how can I help? Where do we start? And sometimes for the person with the hoarding behaviours, they don't know where to start because they feel completely overwhelmed. So in many cases, we're not dealing with hoarding. We're managing the overwhelm to start with.
And often the best place to start is from the point of view of safety. You know, it's tackle the things that are the unsafe things first. You know, we work a lot with the fire department, and you know, any things that are fire risks, you know, trying to get some sort of path through the hoard, you know, that, you know, and when you come from an aspect of safety, then people can kind of identify with that better, and kind of see that actually that will be a benefit to them, whereas sometimes the other stuff, you know, so it might actually be, well, should we just stack this better, you know, so that it's safe, you know, and so you don't necessarily start, and I think this is a common misconception, that you start by getting rid of stuff, you know, that might be quite a long way down the line. You might start just by making things safe initially, and as the trust builds, then, you know, then you open up the scope for being able to get rid of things, you know, but from the point of view of safety first is always a great place to start.
Yeah, that's paramount. That's key. And if they know that you're, we're not here to judge you. You know, it's you know, we're here to make it. If you can come away thinking that person was safer than they were before you arrived, then that's progress.
Yeah.
You know, and without even sort of throwing anything away, and they will understand that. And I think what happens to people is they become clutter blind. There is a term called clutter blindness, so they can't see the obstacles that they're having to that they're confronted with on a daily basis. So sometimes they need someone else's viewpoint to think, oh, I hadn't thought about that, or yes, you know. So it's important that, you know, that they might have lost sight of the fact that it's important that their front door is, you know, if we can have it as widely opened as possible, that's not going to only help them, but it's going to help anyone that perhaps needs to come in.
And as part of that, sort of, you know, getting them to identify with what's not easy in their environment at the minute, you know, and then saying, well, actually, if we maybe did this, then it would be easier for you to, you know, get around, or get up the stairs, or whatever, you know, and just sort of just trying to get them to connect with, you know, the difficulties in that environment, because that's something that they maybe, because they're so used to it, you know, it's a ritual to climb over things, so actually it's not seen as a difficulty anymore, but if you can get them to sort of connect with that in some sort of way, then that can really help as well.
No, definitely. Another thing I think is important is many people with hoarding behaviours, they lack the ability to make decisions. You know, they have problems with decision making, because actually being able to prioritize what they want to keep and what they're happy to perhaps let go of, you know, they might find really difficult. So if we can help and facilitate their decision making, that can go a long way. Not make the decisions for them, but help them arrive at making the decision for themselves. So we're also empowering them.
And that's again about conversations, isn't it? You know, it's about talking to them about things that, you know, I only know what I know, and I've only got, you know, the way I think about something, and you know, getting that other perspective and all that sort of stuff, and that's your, you know, sort of looking at things in a broader way. Often it's quite sort of, you know, sort of uber focused, isn't it? And actually looking at the bigger picture a little bit, you know, things like that can help as well, can't they?
No, definitely. And another thing I also encourage is sometimes by group, I mean, we again, there's me going into solution mode, but if you are wanting to help someone, they're more likely to be able to assess and make decisions if like for like things are put together. So if you can see, and you know, so we always try and start with the least emotional area first. So it's identifying, you know, what is important for that person. Then you can sometimes go for quick wins in terms of safety by, you know, it might be that the junk post is something that can easily go. And then it's helping that person create good habits, because sometimes they might not have a routine, they might not have a structure, and they might not understand the benefits of doing things, you know, in that sort of fashion, over managing their home on a daily basis.
And I think that's one of the crucial things for, you know, if you just go in and take the stuff away, it will just build up again. That's the reality. You know, you're never dealing with the actual issues, the actual problems, which is why, you know, one of the common misconceptions is that it's about the stuff, and it really isn't. You know, and you know, I've heard cases where homes have been cleared out and then they've just been filled again. You know, in a very short space of time. And you know, people have died as a result because the hoard isn't safe. It's you know, and you know, awful things. So it's kind of that expectation I might have. I have to leave outside on the curb. The expectation that I'm going to come out with 4 bin bags full. Forget it. You know, it's not necessarily going to be like that.
Absolutely. And I think you can see it, because if you put yourself in their shoes, can you imagine if you went away on holiday and you know, your brother came round, or your mother-in-law, and decided to rearrange your whole house and decide what was important, what wasn't, and start rummaging around your knicker drawer and sorting out your pantry and your toiletries. You wouldn't be very happy about that. So again, it's like, and you know, when we always talk about, well, what is important? It's very important that that person feels in control and in charge of their stuff. It's very disorientating when, you know, with the best will in the world, someone comes in and go, oh, well, we'll tidy up this and we'll stack that. Always ask permission before you touch anything.
Yeah, I think that could be one of the difficulties when family and friends are trying to do it. They're too emotionally involved in it, you know, and it's kind of. I remember you know, when I've done stuff with my sister before, and her memory of something and her attachment to that item are very different to mine, you know, and kind of embracing those differences and not sort of assuming that they've got the same values, they've got the same needs or anything like that, And I think especially if it's family, you know, it's about trying to put all that on the shelf, you know, and not, you know, not let those things interfere, because they can do a bit more damage than good.
Oh, definitely.
So very difficult sometimes. What else? How else can we help?
How I think we talked about how not to help, and I think it's really important that you don't bring your own emotions into things, and again we spoke about respecting that person, and what matters to them. What other things that we can do?
I've just read the blog that you did, and you know, being very mindful of the language that you use.
Definitely.
You know,
yes, and I think you might consider something rubbish, but they might not. And it's like, people say, oh, well, why are you keeping that? Why don't you just get rid of that? That's not very helpful, you know, to get rid of. You know, you're not valuing what might be important to them. So really, again, be mindful of the language. And the word hoarding, it's not a very nice word, is it? Hoarder.
No.
I think you have to understand that for some people it's about their collection. This might be a lifetime collection of items. So it's being mindful of the language that you use, and it's holding back. Hold back. You know, this has taken. The home might have got into that. This hasn't happened overnight, and can it go away overnight? So sometimes you have to really curb your enthusiasm to have that before and after picture. It's not about having a before and after house beautiful. It's about, again, we talk about always coming from the point of view of safety.
And you know, I think one of the ones you mentioned also is about celebrating, you know, and that because often when I work with people, they're like, oh, well, I've not done much. Oh, well, I've not done much. And, you know, and it's like, no, I realise how huge this is. That's amazing. You've done an absolutely brilliant job there. Whether I got rid of one carrier bag or not, it doesn't matter. You know, it's all, you know, acknowledging that progress, and that goes hand in hand with building the self-worth, you know, and you know, tackling the shame, because, you know, getting through the door can often be the hardest thing to start with, because, you know, there's such guilt and shame that goes along with it, you know, and this sort of this conceived idea that, you know, that I'm dirty and filthy and all that sort of stuff, you know.
That's
so
right.
Really celebrating, you know, even small steps are the best way. Little will lead to the lasting change. You know, if we go in and do a big intervention, then that you know, that doesn't necessarily instill any change, and change is you know, for me it's usually a very slow, very
that's right,
stepped progress, you know.
yeah,
and that's great, you know. And acknowledging that with them, and you know, patting them on the back, and all that.
And praise goes a long way, doesn't it? We all you know, we don't do enough of it, do we? You know.
No,
celebrate. Well, it's like, God, you know, you've done huge. And I think what's also important, that people are more likely to let go of their things if they know it's been given a new lease of life.
Yeah.
So, you know, people like to know that their newspapers will be recycled, that they won't just go into landfill, that that everything is going to be given a new home.
Yeah.
Whether it's whether it's been recycled or regifted. But it's about knowing that their items are going to have a new lease of life somewhere else.
And that often, like working with local community groups, that kind of thing, you know, for getting those things to the places that need them we can just help people to let go, because often, you know, the majority of people I come across, they're so giving, they're so caring.
Absolutely.
You know, a lot of the stuff they hoard is in case somebody else will use it, you know, and it is about, you know, but if you can find those outlets for the
that's right
to, then they'll get rid of it, no problem. You know, it can
and especially if it's something that they can identify with. So, you know, it's like for animal lovers, you know, they love the idea that their stuff can go to an animal, like to cat protection or the dog trust, so it doesn't have to be in perfect condition. You know, everyone needs animal bedding, so half-used toiletries can go to the women's refuge. So it's about also looking at, you know, what's important to them, and that will be the difference of whether something stays or goes.
Yeah, and that's about listening again. You know, it's all about listening really, and responding and getting them involved in it. You know, not dictating what should happen. I think that's the crucial message, isn't it? Yeah.
What else did I put in my top tips, Jo?
I think we've covered most of them. I think tolerance is one. Tolerance. We've really.
Yeah.
Providing the tools we talked about. You know, the overwhelm, and making suggestions. You know, of ways to do things. You know, and sometimes that, you know, it can be like a system that they follow in daily life.
Right.
So it's not necessarily right there, like you mentioned, the junk mail, you know, have a bag next to the door where, you know, they can open it and they can put it straight in there that then goes to the recycling, you know, and if that's there and easily accessible, then that's a new habit that can be formed.
That's right.
You know,
that's right.
And often encouraging between times, say you go once every 2 weeks, you know, messaging and saying, oh, how's it going, and have you remembered to pop your junk mail in there, and you know, and just the odd call of encouragement can continue sort of those, you know, those habits in between visits, you know.
Absolutely. So habit stacking or habit forming, as well as looking at motivation. And I think sometimes helping someone create a vision can really help. If I had a magic wand, or you know, what would we like, what can things look like, and not necessarily looking at the whole house, because that might be too overwhelming, but you know, how, you know, tapping into, they might want to have a friend to come round, they might want their granddaughter to come and stay or to play, or you know, they might be able to want to lie in their bed star shaped, or so tap into, if we had them, what would we like things to look, and that can go a long way in supporting people through their
and sometimes having space when there's been lots of clutter for a long time can be really disconcerting to people. I remember a sort of story where someone was like, well, what will I do with the space, you know, and it's thinking of things that you can do, like dance in that space.
Exactly.
You know, it might not necessarily be that, you know, it's about friends and things like that coming over. That might be too far a stretch, but what would you like to do, you know, and actually I could dance there, or I could do my crafts there, you know, I could open up that space so that I can make the cards that I've got all the stuff for, you know, that kind of thing. So, you know, thinking of things that they can do, you know, with their time rather than stuff, you know. It's because I think sometimes it's just as hard to maintain that cleared space as it is to clear it, because, you know, empty space, we as humans, we naturally fill empty space. You know, I have the word, I'm a bit of a plonker. I think we're all a bit of a plonker. We plonk things down. So actually, you know, the space that we've cleared, as you said, dance in it, protect that space. I
have one client. We talk about a red route area. We literally have in our mind. We decide that this is a no parking area. You know, no plonking, no parking, so that we have that area, as you said, that's our space to jiggle around in, and to help maintain. And it's the same. Sometimes I equate it to sort of managing our weight. You know, sometimes it's going to come off, and sometimes it's going to, we're going to lose it. But we've got to work at it, and then it will just be something that we don't even have to think about.
Yeah, once it becomes sort of habitual and it's got ingrained, and that's why it's about the long-lasting change. You know, it's not the short fixes. You know, and keep those expectations outside. Brilliant, fantastic. Thank you very much. If you need any help, please just get in touch with us. You know, we're on social media and website and all that sort of stuff. But please get in touch, and we're more than happy to help. So give us a shout. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.